If you're able, please rise and join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, has council had the opportunity to review the meeting minutes from April 4th and April 13th local Board of Appeals meeting? If so, how do you wish to proceed?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Changes to this evening's agenda. Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the set agenda.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
A second.
Motion from Mike, second from Robin. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Guests in open forum. This evening we have John Hooper, who is going to present an Eagle Scout project for council. So welcome.
We were having some troubles at printing it, so I just have it on my phone. And now I'm having troubles with my phone. So like you said, I'm John Hooper from Boy Scout Troop 13, and I'm here to talk about my Eagle Scout project. I've been doing Scouts since I was 6 when I first joined Cub Scouts, and now I've been a Boy Scout for about 4 years. In my troop, I'm the senior patrol leader, which means I'm in charge of planning and running all of our meetings. And I'm currently life rank, which is one right before Eagle, and Eagle is the highest award. So I'm working towards that, and one of the requirements is to carry out a service project to help your community. So I chose a Gaga Ball pit, and it's going to be placed at Pleasant View Park. And Gaga Ball, it's a game that you can play with 2 or more people. It has really easy rules. It's not a hard thing to pick up on. And you can play with all sorts of different age levels. Like we've had it before at our scout camps. And there's like the younger kids, and there's adults too. It's just everyone's getting and having fun. And the pit that I'm going to build, it's a wooden, with 8 wooden walls set up in an octagonal area. And you just play with typically a kickball, but we've played with tennis balls and football, so it's kind of whatever you can find. And that's all I have for that, but I was also asking, because I have to fundraise all of the money for it, so I was asking for a donation. If the city of Becker would like to help donate, that would be greatly appreciated. Help me get to it.
Could you explain how the game is played?
Yeah.
Gaga, I don't know if I've seen. Has anyone seen?
It's like dodgeball is what I'm getting at here.
In
Does that sound
an-
right?
Yeah, pretty much.
In an octagon?
Yeah, you just don't get
It's
to
like
run.
that octagon.
You're trapped. You're trapped in a cage and you get whacked with a ball, looks like.
So it's in a pit like that,
Okay.
and there's a ball in there, and then there's 2 to however many people you can get to fit in there.
Oh,
And then
jeez.
you hit the ball with your hands or anywhere below your knees. If you get hit below your knees with the ball, then you're out and you have to leave the pit. And you can just hit it. You can't grab it or pick it up. You got like closed fist.
Oh.
And if you're out and the ball goes out of the pit and then you like catch it, then you can get back in. There's all sorts of different rules like that. There's some that some people play and others don't. But
Okay.
there's a universal set that's pretty.
So you have to hit it with your hands. You can't hit it with your feet.
No, if it's either waist. Some people play waist, some play knees. I more like to play knees because it's harder to get out. But
Will you have the rules of the game posted? I mean, will
I was
people?
thinking of making like a little plaque that
Yeah,
had like my name and maybe some sponsor, whoever gave me the lumber
okay.
or I bought the lumber from, and then the rules underneath it so people can see.
Okay. Well, I think it's a very cool project.
Yeah.
Yes, and the Pleasant Park is a wonderful park for this type of addition. There's lots of kid activities over there. In regards to the sponsorship, I'm going to have you work with either Greg LaRude or Phil Knutson, and they'll be able to help identify that piece.
Just read it.
All right.
Do you got some just wood laying around, some lumber?
What, you been in my backyard?
Any other questions for our,
No, it sounds fun.
Sounds great.
all right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We will move on to committee reports. Personnel. We met a few weeks ago, and our items are actually on this evening's agenda, such as the Public Works lead memo. We're extending that agreement. The Rec and Leisure Benefit Policy, that is on our agenda for this evening. Recruitment Incentive Policy, that's also on our agenda. And then we just have hiring, where we are within our hiring here at City of Becker, and that was about it for our meeting. How about EDA?
EDA met on the 10th. Like usual, we went through the monthly market report. At that time, there were 11 homes in our zip code for sale. We talked about business visits. There were quite a few of them. Some interesting ones. Versatile Trucking, unfortunately, is leaving to move to Clearwater. Style Insurance is looking at participating somehow in the Freedom Days. Planning, we talked about the UPS store. The planning is nearing completion. The BRECC update. Renee volunteered Becker as a site visit option, and we will know in May if it is chosen. And that was about it.
All right, how about Joint Powers Fire Board?
Fire Board, we met last night. Per usual, we just kind of went through the payment of the bills and payroll. Everything looked great. Really, the only thing that came up that would be news to everyone is just there's going to be the Touch a Truck event on Saturday, the 6th of May. Yeah, that's about it.
That's at the BCC.
BAC
Yep.
this year.
All right, and then Park and Rec.
Park and Rec met last night. Truda, our chair, has resigned her position. She's been chair for 10 years, on the commission for 13. She is moving out of state. So we will have a commission opening, which will get posted. We talked a little bit about the BAC. Parking lot's open, and they're ready to move forward when things dry out there, which hopefully will happen.
Great.
Hopefully. We talked about the community park build-out and looked at some of the equipment options that we might be looking at. Some of the events that have happened was the Easter Bunny Breakfast. And unfortunately, they had a snowstorm, but it was still well attended. At least 200 that had food and others that didn't. May 6th Touch a Truck, BIC parking lot. 10 to 1, there will be food vendors and other interesting things happen. Park shelters are very busy with reservations for family reunions, get-togethers, graduation parties, whatever. And the Freedom Days planning is coming along well.
All right. Any committees missed? All right. We are going to move into board, committee, and consultant reports. Recruitment Incentive Policy with Ms. Bleasy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as everyone has likely heard, recruiting new employees has become very competitive. Last year, the city recruited for 3 positions, that could have benefited from the recruitment incentive policy, including our police officers, city planner, and water wastewater operator positions. Staff is just seeing more and more cities offering this kind of incentive out there. The recruitment incentive policy before you for consideration allows for up to $2,000 to be paid to a new hire and up to $2,000 to be paid to a current employee who recruits a new hire and is identified as that recruiter. For the new hire, half would be paid after the first year of successful service. Second half would be paid after the second year. For the recruiter, if one is identified, a quarter would be paid at the time of hire, a quarter would be paid after their first year of service, and then the final half would be paid after the second year of successful service. So the successful candidate would be required to sign the recruitment incentive services agreement upon hire. And it's important to note that this policy is not a blanket policy. Department heads would be required to request or to complete a request form and submit it to Personnel Committee for approval to post with the recruitment incentive. Additionally, the department head would have the discretion to request less than that $2,000 if they wanted to. The policy has been reviewed by legal and approved, And they also developed memorandums of agreement for both of our unions, and the unions would have to accept the policy and sign off on it. So Personnel Committee did review and recommend approval. As mentioned previously, up to $4,000 would come from departmental budgets over a 2-year period for each position that is approved for the incentive. I'll take any questions, otherwise a motion and second to approve the recruitment incentive policy and authorize the city administrator to sign the memorandums of agreements with the unions.
I think it's important to just to reiterate, it's not a blanket policy and it's not for every hire. There's
Correct.
specific criteria.
Correct.
I will be honest with you, I have some concerns on it. One of the questions I have is it that we don't pay enough as it is in the first place, that you gotta enhance it? And if that's the case, maybe we should review it. The other thing is I'd be more concerned about the existing employees so they don't leave. We could, I guess the way I see it, we could run into some issues with throwing out this $4,000 here and there.
We could certainly look at a retention policy as well, to Mike's point. We are just seeing many communities have their salaries, but many communities are doing this incentive on top of the salary that they're
I can see it for
offering.
police officers
Yeah.
because there's a shortage of police officers wherever you go.
Yep.
So I can definitely see it for that. And I have issues with some of the other positions.
Yeah.
I feel the comp study that we just completed and we, entered in all of the competitive data and increased our employees' salaries to accommodate the what the competitive
That's,
compensation package. I think I had the same initial reaction as you, but when you take a look at what the hiring world is doing with all the incentives, this is a pretty mild incentive compared to some of the other incentives that are taking place. I know that you mentioned like retention of our own employees. This individual and our current employee would have to be here 2 years. I mean, there's a retention
well, I
number to
understand
get
that.
it.
It's, I can see it disrupting the budget real easy. If you have a big turnover all of a sudden, it's another year before the budget gets adjusted accordingly. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but it wouldn't be used for every hire.
I understand that. That's easy to say now, but is that really gonna hold true?
Well, the fact that it's discretionary, we'll use it when we need to and not necessarily use it for a position that would be easier to fill.
I would
Okay, I'll give you an
say,
example. I see absolutely zero reason to use it for the golf course. It's a seasonal job.
Oh, yeah.
that wouldn't be the intent for this one,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Pointing out
This
some,
would be more for the unions.
I can understand for the police department. I have no issue with that. That's really about as far as I'm willing to go, though.
I would say a lot of times too, if we hire or post a position and we get 1 or 2 applications back, then that's the point at which maybe we'd look at, okay, do we need some kind of incentive here to get more applicants in? That was the case last year with the planner, and we posted 2 times for that
Yeah,
position.
2 applications is not good enough.
So it'd be in those type of situations that we'd be looking at this incentive to be used.
Because like the food and beverage manager, there was what, 9, 20, 23?
24, I believe.
23. That's a good turnout for that.
When would you decide to offer it?
So it would have to go through personnel, so, say police department posts for a police officer and they get 2 applications. Okay, at this point now, they are filling out this request form, identifying reasons as to why, we only had 2 applications this
So
last
they would have to
time.
go file the post first, get a result, and then they could request it after that, or could they request it immediately?
It could go both ways. I wouldn't say it would absolutely have to go that way, but based on maybe they hired earlier in the year and they had very poor turnout. That would be a good example, police department again, where, you know, we had very poor turnout. Maybe we need to look at doing this, look at what's available right now for open positions and what's being offered out there at the current time.
So personnel would approve it before we offer it.
Correct.
Then I
Right, so it's not
am
just a
okay with
blanket,
that.
yeah.
And I think the 3 positions listed here are ones that we advertised for and had to do it again.
Yep.
Yeah,
So it isn't going to be, police might be the only one on the front end that you would say we're gonna need to.
Yeah, and I can see on the police
And the
side.
and a lot of policies are just giving the benefit to the new employee. Ours was, we wanted to have our people be recruiters. What better way to already know somebody who's in the field and say, hey, you know, I'm working here, this is a good place to work.
That's why I mentioned incentives for keeping our people here. If you got a happy life at your place of employment, you're gonna brag about it to other people.
Right.
And that's, to me, is just as important as trying to lure somebody in with a little signing bonus of some sort, you know? So,
I don't disagree with that, but we did do the comp study to make sure that
I
our
understand
wages
that.
are where they need to be.
Yeah, I understand that, I'm aware of it, I remember it. It's, okay, I said my piece.
Any other discussion? Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve the recruitment incentive policy and authorize city administrator to sign the memorandums of agreement for construction and general laborers, Local 363 and Law Enforcement Labor Services, Inc.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Thank you. Thank you. Event patio railing, Mr. Kua.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening, we have event patio railing replacement at Pebble Creek Golf Club. This is a project that we had planned for in our 2023 capital improvement plan. So as you may recall, in the fall of 2020, Pebble Creek expanded the existing west side deck to accommodate more guests. The product turned out really well. So that left us in a position where on the other side of the building, we had kind of the old style wooden railing and deck system. So this project is looking to update the east side deck patio with the same railing that was installed on the west side. So this is kind of just looking to get consistency in our look. If you're on the golf course and you're playing and you're looking back at our clubhouse, you're seeing 2 bookends of the property with not matching railing systems. It is one of the original structures to it, so it is due for an upgrade, but also just really level up kind of the look and feel. We do a number of events and weddings on that side of the building that utilizes that event patio. So continuing to reinvest in that facility seems like a nice step forward for us. So we had approached Lincoln Builders. They are the same contractor. They're local to Becker that had done the deck and railing project on the west side and received a quote for $10,700 for the railing replacement. That we had $12,500 budgeted for the project, so it did come under. There is a buffer room for the permitting necessary for it. As well as in this request, we would look to take the extra money and deploy it towards a hand railing to be installed later this year before next winter on the west side of the deck. If you remember or you recall, kind of the long inclined entrance to our restaurant it does have a little steeper grade, and during the winter, a hand railing installed on that would very much be useful for our guests. So any excess from this project up to the 12.5, we would ask that council approve that to be used for that future project, and then we'd look for other funding sources at that time. So this was been discussed at Golf Committee, and they're supportive of this enhancement. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about what we're looking to accomplish. I've taken some photos and shared them in the packet of both the railing that we're looking to switch to and the status of the existing structure. At the end, looking for a motion and a second to engage Lincoln Builders for the Pebble Creek event patio railing replacement for the amount not to exceed $12,500. be interested in any questions or feedback that you might have.
I'd like to point out that the railing on that east end, it's starting to look a little ragged anyway. It's, you know, been there, that's not cedar, I don't believe, is it? I think that was treated lumber. So it doesn't stand up as well. And we definitely need the railing down that sidewalk.
Yes, we do.
So, I think it's a good move.
Does that mean you're making the motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion, we approve the railing replacement for a maximum of $12,000.
12.5.
12,500.
1,200. What? No.
12,500.
12,500. Yeah, I'm
12,500,
like, hold on.
okay.
We're all,
I'll second.
Motion from Mike, second from Robin. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Josh, did you want to plug it when we might be open? I know it was announced for today.
You know, after last week, I'm a little hesitant
Okay,
to
all
announce
right.
an opening date, so I'm going to defer, but thanks for the opportunity.
You'll defer to Mother Nature. Okay. All right, we have bid award for 2023 street improvement projects. Mr. Knutson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. Tonight, we're here to discuss the bid award for our street projects this year. Back on March 7th, the council authorized us to put the project out for bid. We did so according to all the statutes that we follow. We had a base bid plus 2 alternates, and at that time, we did receive 4 bids for the project. Bids were opened on April 4th, and total of the projects ranged in price from $1,489,820 up to a little over $1.7 million. I won't go into all the street details. I think I've recited those several times, but we've got several lane miles that we're working on in various parts of the town. So the alternates that we were talking about, though, alternate A is a parking lot improvement on the north side of the community center. We've kind of held off on that one as to where we would position it in our CIP based on the improvements that are needed, but also the configuration of the parking lot. And we felt timing would be right to try and move that forward this year with the construction going on, not just within the city, but also with Avalon Estates. Alternate B, as we discussed when you folks signed the purchase agreement with the old fire hall sale with the township, that is making those improvements that are called out on Hancock and the north side of the parking lot there. So the bids, like I said, did come back favorable. We do have the funds budgeted for this process. One thing of note, as it relates to the community center project, we went into it not knowing where the bids were going to come back. We've seen a little fluctuation or a little volatility with bituminous pricing. And so we didn't necessarily go through the full CIP process on that because we weren't sure if we were going to fund it from maybe future improvements or street funds or the actual community center CIP. When the bids came back, they were favorable to our estimates. So we were thinking right around the $225,000, maybe $250,000, but they came in about $185,000. So seeing that compared to the engineer's estimate, staff felt we should try and move this thing forward. So I worked with Budget and Finance on the community center CIP and feel very comfortable that we can move the roof project out a couple of years, 1 year for sure, which will buy us to pull this money in and be able to do the project out there in conjunction with everything that's going on. So it will all be funded out of the community center CIP, and I'm comfortable as we're coming into the budget cycle that we can make our CIP work for the outlying years as well with this being pulled in right now. So everything else will be funded out of the street CIP. And the alternate B will be a cost share. We'll lay it out there, and the township will reimburse us for that, which will then go back into the street CIP. So OMG Midwest, Minnesota Paving is the low bidder. They did our street projects last year, and I was informed today that we would, should this get approved, we would have the same job suit that would run this project this year as last. So staff feels very good about that as well. We had a really, really good project run last year. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
With the alternate A, with the community center piece, is the timing correct with Avalon? Like, they'll be working their streets and their roads. I mean, if we're having an issue with our CIP, maybe we wait a year on that, but I know you've ran the numbers.
Yep, I'm very comfortable with it. The CIP, I think we're fine with that, but in conjunction with that, so we've got the project inspector from SEH is in the city and doing this. He'll keep an eye on Birdie Lane and that development as well as this one. And I just think tying it all together, disturbing that area at one time is really in our best interest. That's why I feel we should move it forward. And I'm very comfortable with our CIP. We'll do. Hopefully Mother Nature allows us to do our inspection. We didn't see anything the last 2 years on our roof inspection that would lead me to believe that we're gonna have a failure of significance that we need to replace the entire roof at the community center. That's really what that CIP item is called out for. I think we can probably push that 3 to 5 years in a comfortable state and not chase bad money out there, that we can look at that investment. So I feel very comfortable making the request as it's stated tonight. But it's a great question, and again, we didn't want to get over our skis on that, but I didn't want to dive into that process if the numbers were going to come back extremely high, and it wouldn't be favorable for the city. But with the bids being where they were at, I thought it was prudent to take that next step, so.
Okay.
Did alternate B come in close to what you expected it to be?
Yes, we had hoped for roughly 45 to 50, and we're just over, I think we're $50,800. So that project is gonna come in at or just slightly under what the shared cost with the township is. So that, yeah, we're looking
So
very
there'll be
favorable.
no problem, okay.
Nope, and that was shared with the township as well.
Township,
Yeah, so they're aware of that, knowing we're just waiting on action
Okay.
from council, so.
Any other questions for Mr. Knutson? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2334 with options A and B
Okay.
for street project.
I'll second.
Motion from Mike, second from Becky. Any other discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye. Aye. Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supplemental letter agreement with SEH for Project 4, Mr. Knutson.
No council meeting is complete without an SLA with SEH, right? I mean, we like our acronyms. So on, earlier in March, council awarded Project 4 for the business park expansion to Latour Construction. As is customary with these bigger projects, we pull apart the supplemental letter agreement. So that's just an agreement with SEH, who is our consulting engineer on these projects. But when the scope gets outside of our master agreement of professional services, we use the supplemental letter. In these bigger projects, we spread it out. So we do this design phase engineering on the front side. If it goes through the process and to award like it did, then we'll work on the construction phase engineering. So what this does, it just puts us in place so we've got somebody that's protecting the city asset. That's gonna go on the ground and it's gonna be there for hopefully 50 years or better. So we wanna make sure that the work is done right. So it's just an accountability step, that the materials are being sourced and used the right way, that everything's happening the way we see fit. And that's what this has done. We've done this many times before on the projects 1 and 2, and we'd look to do it here. We're jumping to 4 because this project will start prior to project 3. There will be one coming for project 3 as well. But we're getting this going because we have a construction kickoff meeting on Friday with Latour Construction for this project as well. So I don't have a date to give you yet, but I will tell you the cost of this SLA is $268,000, or a price not to exceed $268,000. It was accounted for in that whole financial recap and worksheet that was given to council as worked through with budget and finance. So this dollar is already, it's not, it was already set. We knew what the number was going to be prior to working that budget document. So this fits in line with the resources and uses that have been worked through with the finance team and with budget and finance.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2336, approving an SLA with SEH for the County Road 53 to Edgewood trunk water main improvements.
Second.
Motion from Robin, second from Mike. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Administrator and staff reports. Code enforcement with Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So before you tonight, we're gonna have a little discussion about code enforcement. So like most cities, our city, well, not most, like many cities, our city employs a complaint-based enforcement process. And duties of that enforcement process fall to a couple different departments. Public Works does some of the stuff within the right-of-way, but most of it falls under the police department or community development. So police department typically health, safety, other issues that are in there, zoning, subdivision, other issues like that under community development. So the overriding goal of enforcement is compliance, not punishment. That's the one thing. It's really about compliance and just getting people to understand what the codes are, what they need to do, what they need to do to come into compliance. We encourage residents to try and comply with their own properties before complaining about others. And we also encourage them to discuss any issues they might have with their neighbors. If possible, you know, between neighbors, we understand that's not always possible. So one of the reasons that we're also bringing this up, we recently reached out to this county's attorney's office to understand their appetite to push certain compliance issues when individuals aren't complying after multiple notices, fines, etc. Would the county, what is their appetite to go after these individuals in a legal proceedings? And the response back, which is in the packet from the county attorney, Kathy Heaney, it basically states that they're not going to do any of that. It's not covered under the agreements. They're only involved in the enforcement of public safety issues, and they won't prosecute any zoning, nuisance, subdivision, wetlands, or non-public safety issues at the court level. Additionally, the bench at the county level has also discouraged really the use of the court systems for that purpose. They're backlogged with others, so it just takes up more time in the court systems while they're trying to get a lot of other criminal activity pushed through the court systems. So as a result, what happens with it? Well, what happens if the county doesn't do it? Well, then it falls back to the city attorney to prosecute. We did discuss with our attorney about that, his appetite to take enforcements through the civil proceeding level. He said he's open to it, but did caution that doing that for, you know, if you're to do it everything, it can be very time consuming and expensive. So the city attorney did recommend and suggest that we make our administrative fines more robust because we don't really have a whole process for that. We met internally, police department, community development, Greg. We all met to discuss the suggestions and potential changes to enforcement. And we're proposing a few changes tonight, and the goal would be to bring these back at May 2nd with a draft process policy and kind of a graphic representation of what the enforcement flow would be. So what it would be is that complaints would fall under two categories. Right now, they're just kind of lumped in as one big thing. You would have health and safety, which are more of a time, I'm trying to think of the word, but yeah, thank you, time critical piece. So those would be ones you need to enforce immediately that need more of a, you know, police department would be over those where they would go out to the site, they would be in charge of enforcement. On the other side, you would have those that, and those would have a shorter time frame. If compliance couldn't be achieved through fines, then court proceedings would be initiated for those. Again, because those are related, they're impacting not only the person complaining, but also the person being complained against and others potentially in the neighborhood. Nuisance, this is where community development would be primarily responsible. It's a longer time frame. It would be a mix of notifications, which we do already, and administrative fines would be used to achieve compliance. One of the things right now, administrative fines means that staff of community development could go and fine versus having to have police department fine, which is currently what occurs. So it puts a lot on the police department to go out and have to fine for everything that's also included in the zoning ordinance. So in this case, you would only prosecute civilly or criminally in rare circumstances where the complaint is a health or safety. So if it becomes a point, maybe it started as zoning, but it's just grown and become bigger, and it's become a health and safety concern, then that's when, you know, PD would step in and it would become a criminal and civil. And then part of this is creating an administrative fine process that will allow staff, again, as we talked about, to issue fines. Fines unpaid would be assessed at the end of the year. Obviously, when they have the opportunity to come and talk about that, they could at the adjustment and appeals. The other thing with the nuisance process with community development that we would propose is that there is, would be the option for the person to appeal the notice of violation. So it would be a third-party judge that would come in, similar to what we're seeing in the dog ordinance. You'd have a third party, there would be a fee. They would pay the fee, they would come in, be heard. If it rules in their favor, then the fee may be waived. Doesn't always mean it will be, but may be. If it's not, then the fine would still come to the city. But that would provide an avenue for somebody to appeal a decision on compliance. So then part of this is just refining processing codes and policies to effectuate these changes. So really what we're seeking as staff is to make sure we're on the same page as council on how far you want us to pursue some of these issues, specifically civil and court proceedings. And again, we would propose that we'll bring some draft policies and procedures back to you at the May 2nd meeting. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
I think you're on the right track. I think it's a well-needed addition to,
This is still complaint-based, right?
Absolutely.
yep.
Still complaint-based, yes. So, and I will note too, city staff still has discretion to work with individuals, timelines, et cetera, because that's important. Many times, for example, you know, somebody's kid passes away, which we've had happen where a complaint was to go out. Well, then you don't want to get a complaint in the mail when that individual has just had a kid pass away. So there is also still leaving staff the discretion to adjust those timeframes as necessary due to weather, other, you know, events as well. So it's still keeping similar complaint, it's just adjusting some of the administrative pieces.
Yeah.
I worry, I hope we don't provoke a constant complaint person.
That's already happened.
I understand that, but, so the person who makes the complaint, do they have any right to what you are working through with this person?
So we generally don't share compliance issues. Now, if it's something where you feel it necessary to share it with the neighbor, you can. We don't have it prohibited, but that's again something we would address in the policy piece. And a lot of those, once they get in the enforcement process, it's still going through the enforcement process. We're still working through it. Here's where they're at. The information of the complainant also stays anonymous. That's statutorily regulated. So that is not public data. The complaint can be, you can request, well, what's the complaint about, but the person's information cannot be released. I don't know if that answers your question, Robin.
Yeah. How many complaints do you get in both categories generally?
Oh my gosh. We could pull the stats together. I know PD gets a number. We generally get, I would say on average, a couple a month, but that's being, in the summer, it always picks up. And it really depends on the time. Sometimes we'll get an influx where if you have one individual that complains about 4 different addresses, then it's all at the same time. So sometimes it varies. We can get 4 at a time, which we've done before. We can get 1 or 2 one-offs. It just varies.
Okay.
But they are time consuming.
Yeah.
But I think as part of our presentation on the 2nd is we'll break those down in categories for the last couple of years for you, so you have.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
I just don't want to see somebody driven by the idea that they're going to get their neighbor fined or their,
Right.
you know, but we have to take care of it too, I guess, so.
And I think that's where too, we've had the discussion with, that's where this policy will kind of address some of those pieces that we're coming with. We've talked to legal about that, how do we address those in the policy to ensure that it's not being taken advantage of? And that's one of those things that we'll address in there with legal and our. Good question.
Well, then I'm good with moving forward with it.
Okay. So it seems like we have consensus.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think you do.
Okay, we'll move forward. We'll bring that back May 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda, Mr. LaRude.
Mayor Bertram, city council members, items for approval on tonight's consent agenda include the revised hiring and termination report for Pebble Creek Golf Course, the recreation and leisure benefit policy update, the electronic funds transfer policy, adopting resolution 23-35, amending resolution 23-01, designating employees to conduct electronic funds transfer, adopt resolution 23-33, accepting the following donations: 5,000 from eRoof LLC and 600 from Liberty Paper, and approve the memorandum of understanding for the Public Works acting lead position. And I'll stand for any questions.
Who is E-Roof?
Yeah.
They did the work, the roofing work in Public Works, I believe. All of our roof from the hail damage, so they just made a non-directed donation to the city.
Very nice.
We should point out that bid was competitive too. Yeah, we contacted multiple companies to do it.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion from Robin, second from Becky. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Payment of the bills.
I motion we pay the bills.
I will second that.
Motion from Becky, second from Robin. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor can state aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. Does council have anything else for the betterment of Becker? If not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Mike, second from Robin. Those in favor can state aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 5:42 PM.